Okay, I'm going to show you how to do this concept, because this actually isn't stitch work in it. It's a weaving, but you have to be able to set up your cabling so that it pops when you weave it in. Okay, so what I'll need to do is show you how to do the cabling. Now this is a 2 crossover, and what I'm going to do is show you a 4 crossover. Because the 2 crossover is pretty simple, you can find out how to do a left and a right 2 stitch cable cross pretty readily online, and I've done a photo tutorial in the PDF below, in the link below. I've done a PDF and I show a photo tutorial how to do the 2. The weave is where you're going to have some fun there. Typically, if you want to do this on another loom, I'm making my little girl, some hats, some neutral hats, white and tan and black, so that she has hats that will match any outfit she's got on. So what you want to keep in mind is, if you want to do the 2 crossover here, you're using 4 pegs, and in order to have that, you'll have this section in between, and typically I would go for the same amount, 4 pegs for that, which would be a total of 8. And if you can divide your loom into 8 and it comes out even, you can do that. But because I'm using the 72, it didn't come out even, and I ended up using I believe 5 and 4 for it to come out even, so 9. And that's where you can add in the purled section. Here is where you can give and take to make any loom really work, but you want it at least the same number of pegs and a little bit more if you're doing the cable. So the cable section's 4 stitches, and then typically you try to go for 4 purl stitches as your set. But if it doesn't work, add in the purls, add those in and see if the purls can get you an even number, but you need it to be an even number, okay? So I ended up having 5 purls in between my cable sections here. And what I'm doing here is I'm working with the same loom, because I'm making one for my daughter, but I'm going to do a 4, so it'll be 8 stitches, and I needed that to come out evenly, and so 16 wasn't coming out, 17 wasn't, 18 is what came out, and I'm going to be doing it 4 times around the loom. There is a point where I think it's going to be too much. If it's going to be like 3 more than what you're working with, that's going to be kind of pushing it. If it's anywhere from, like, since I'm doing 8 and I've got 10, that works. But if you can get the 16, do it. If you can get it anywhere in that range from 8 to 10 stitches after the 8 that you're using, go for it. But 18 is what divided up, and so I'm going to be doing 4 of the cable crossings, okay? And that'll be the more of the challenge here. So because it's a ribbing kind of anyway, I'm going to start out the gate. Alright, so for this one I did E-wrap 4, purl 5 for 4 rows, okay? And that's because I'm working with 4 stitches for the cabling. If you're doing it with this, which is the 8 stitches for cabling, you want to do 8 rows, and that's the best way to keep up before you do your cable crossing. So what you're going to do is, I've already done an E-wrap cast on, okay, and what you're going to do is you're going to stitch mark 4 and 4 and then 10, okay, because you're cabling this one and this one, they're separate, but that's a total of 8. Alright, so you want to E-wrap 8, so E-wrap those 8, And when it comes to this kind of cabling, I prefer to E-wrap. I don't knit, or you can't do the whole thing over real well. Okay. So there's my 8. Now I'm going to purl 10 for this to work. If you can get it to be purl 8, get it. Okay, but this is the purl section between your cables. And you're going to do this all the way around, so I'm going to be purling 10. So E-wrap 8, purl 10 all the way around if you're working on the 72 peg. If you are working on one where it's, you can do 8 purls or something, do it. The purls may change between the loom that you're using, but the purl area is your give to whatever loom you want to use. Okay, so I'll tell you to pause the video, and if you're working on a 72 peg loom or getting the same numbers that I am, E-wrap 8, purl 10 all the way around, and you're going to do that for 8 total rows, and then we'll do a crossing. Okay, and if you are going to try to do the 2x2, you're going to do it for 4 rows. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and get that much done, and then we will go from there, and I'll show you how to do the 4 stitch left cable cross, 4 stitch right cable cross, and that way you can get an understanding of how to do this. Okay, I'm on my last row, my 8. You may find you want to do this trick. Sorry about my voice. Okay, you may find you want to do this trick, and it's going to make it easier to shuffle the stitches around. So on your 8 stitches, what you'll want to do is you'll want to wrap, and then on the middle, double wrap, double wrap, double wrap, double wrap, double wrap, double wrap. You're going to double wrap the middle 4, okay, and then there. Because what you're going to do on the next row is you're going to release those double wraps, and you're going to spread that tension out among the stitches, okay. And what that's going to do is that's going to make it easier to go in and shuffle the stitches around to do the cabling. Okay, so go ahead and finish your last row, and then I will show you how to do the cabling. But that's how you prep the previous row. If you think you're going to have trouble moving the stitches around, you'll do that. You'll wrap those, you'll double wrap the 4 inner pegs of those 8 stitches, and that'll help and go a long ways, because there's some, I can't recall right this minute, there's a certain cross that because you don't get to pre-wrap it, can be very difficult to shuffle around. So go ahead and pause the video and complete this row, and then I will go in and show you how to do a 4 stitch left and right cable cross. Okay, and I'll explain which is which. Alright, okay, we're to the cable crossing. Now, we did a double wrap on those middle pegs, and what you'll need is to take that extra wrap out. Alright, if you can find the single one to pull over, just pull that over, okay, and get it down to single wraps on the four middle ones. I mean, you can take the whole thing off and make sure you put one back, but I find this is safer. So you've got 4 loose pegs here. You want to kind of loosen that tension among the total 8 stitches, and by distributing this tension you will make it easier to move stitches around. Okay, our first one is we're going to be taking these 2 pegs and we're going to be crossing them in front. So that's going to be a left cable cross because it's going towards the left. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to place these on a stitch holder. Alright, so you pick up stitch 2 and stitch 1, place them on the stitch holder, place them in the middle of the loom, skip over, E-wrap pegs 3 and 4, toss them over. You're going to move stitch 3, and I like to pick them up like this. Okay, pick up stitch 3 and move it over to peg 1 and move stitch 4 over to peg 2. And the next thing I like to do is kind of snug up those stitches. Okay, move the working yarn in front. And the reason why you picked up stitch 1 and then stitch 2 is you want to place stitch 1 on peg 3, and that one's going to be the first one you can actually get on your stitch holder. So take off stitch 1 and you're going to place it onto stitch 3. Then you're going to place stitch 2 onto peg 4. Okay, that's the reason why you pick up the second stitch before you pick up the first stitch. Alright, then what you want to do is you want to E-wrap, toss over, and E-wrap and toss over. Now our next one is going to be a right cable cross, and what that means is these 2 pegs are going to be crossing in the front towards the right. Okay, so what you'll need to do at this point is, in order for that to happen, you'll need to skip those 2 pegs and E-wrap pegs 3 and 4. Toss them over. And then you're going to place stitch 4 on the stitch holder first, then stitch 3. Take them off, place them to the middle of the loom, pick up, lightly wrap peg 1 and 2. Now you can go ahead and move them, but I find that it adds a little extra ability to be able to move them easily if you do this. So you wrap pegs 1 and 2. Alright, toss the loops over. Okay, now you're going to pick up stitch 2, place on peg 4, stitch 1, place on peg 3. Then you have stitch 3 that you take off and you place on peg 1, and then you place stitch 4 on peg 2. Okay, and this one you have to tighten up all the way across. So what I like to do is go and start on that first one, tighten it up all the way across. So you start on peg 1 and you go in and you snug it up, and you'll find that stitch 3 may give you a little bit of trouble there. Okay, and you have just done your patterning where it goes out through the middle. Okay, and you see how that loosening up the stitches made it really easy to go ahead and cross it. There wasn't a real struggle there. So go ahead and then purl your 10. Nothing changes here, or your 8, or however many purls you needed to make it even and work on the peg on the loom you wanted. Now I'm going to tell you, keep in mind cabling shrinks the circumference of the hat. I don't know the calculations to which it shrinks. It depends on the type of cabling you're doing, but it does shrink the size of the circumference of the hat. Alright, so keep that in mind when you're doing something like this. 72 pegs is not typically what I use for my daughter. I usually use the 54 54 peg loom, not the 54 peg, but the 60 peg loom for her, or the 68 peg, depending on what I'm making. On average, it's a 68. Okay, but I'm using a 72, so use a larger size loom depending on what you normally use and who you are making it for. So go the next size up if that's possible. Okay, I'm going to show you this one more time on how to do this. You'll need to release your 4 center. Now you can go in and you can try to just take the whole thing off, but I don't typically. But you definitely want to go in and release those 4 middle wraps. And then you want to spread that tension out among the 8 pegs. Okay, and spreading the tension out makes it look better. It doesn't give that stretched look that sometimes if you don't divide the tension up, it gives you a stretched look, and you don't want that. It looks it takes the quality down of the cabling. Okay, all right, so we're doing our left cable cross first. So you're going to place stitch 2, then stitch 1 on the stitch holder, and you need to do it in that order. Okay, stitch 2 and then stitch 1, place to the center of the loom. Then you're going to E-wrap pegs 3 and 4. Then you're going to take off stitch 3 and stitch 4, place stitch 3 on peg 1 and stitch 4 on peg 2. You're going to snug up those stitches because you can. Place the working yarn on this side. Okay, now what you want to do is you want to take stitch 1 off the stitch holder, leaving stitch 2 on there, and you want to place it on peg 3. Then you want to place stitch 2 onto peg 4. E-wrap pegs 3 and 4, untoss the loop over. That is your left 4-stitch cable cross. Okay. Alright, now we're going to do our right. Okay, so we're going to skip pegs 1 and 2 and E-wrap pegs 3 and 4. Toss the bottom loops over. Place stitch 4 on the stitch holder first, then stitch 3. Place to the middle of the loom and bring the working yarn in front of those stitches to wrap pegs 1 and 2. Toss the bottom loops over. Then you're going to take stitch 2 and 1 off and place stitch 2 onto peg 4, stitch 1 onto peg 3. Then you're going to take stitch 3 and place it onto peg 1 and stitch 4 onto peg 2. Then you're going to snug up your stitches starting with your first stitch and work your way over. Now again, stitch 3 will be a little tighter to work with, but you want to snug up those stitches so that it looks nice and clean when you go and finish up. And then purl 10 stitches, and you continue this process all the way around for this one row, and then you start over again by doing the E-wrap 8, purl 10, or however many purls you got, for another 8 rows, and then you do this again. So this is a repeat. So start back from the beginning of the video where I start E-wrapping 8 and purling 10, and then you're going to do this, and then you're going to just repeat over and over until you get the length you need. To get the length I need for my daughter, I'm going to be doing this for a total of 4 times. So I'm going to be crossing 4 times. You can measure up. Once you do a few, you can do a measure, kind of do your swatch that way to figure out the length you need, which is kind of what I did. I did it a few times. So pause the video and complete that much, and we'll go from there. Okay, I'll have completed my 4 crosses, 1, 2, 3, and my last one. And now I'm ready to work my crown area. And the reason I'm going to show you how to work the crown area is so that it can continue this patternization that we have. So you have a really nice, neat, clean crown. And so usually I do a 6-row patterning, and we're not going to be crossing again, but we are going to be doing decreases. And you're going to be focusing your first round on your purled rows, okay, on your purled sections here. So what you want to do is you're going to E-wrap 8 to start this, and you're going to be decreasing on your purl sections, and I'll show you that. So there's your 8 where you've been cabling and doing all that kind of thing, and then you're going to purl that first one, move it over one, okay, take the yarn around to purl the 2 together. Then go to the next one, purl, move that over, go around, and purl the 2 together. The next one, move it over, go around, and purl the 2 together. Purl the next one, move it over, purl the 2 together. Last one in the section, purl, move over, and purl the 2 together. You're going to repeat this all the way around. E-wrap 8, decrease your purl sections, and then we will go from there. Okay, now the next 2 rounds are going to be repeated. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do this. Okay, so you're going to E-wrap 8. Okay, so E-wrap the 8. And then these are no longer valid, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to go behind it, and you're only going to purl the pegs with stitches. So you're going to purl that one, and purl that one, and purl one more, and then go back to E-wrap 8, okay? So on the decrease sections, just purl the ones that have purls, and then on your cable sections you E-wrap. So repeat what we just did all the way around for 2 rounds, and then I'll show you how to go ahead and start slowly decreasing on your cable section so that it has a nice point at the top. Okay, we've done our 2 rows, and here we're fixing to start switching over to a knit rather than E-wrap on these. We're not doing any more crosses. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this first stitch, and you're going to move it over to the next one. Okay, so you're going to decrease over before doing anything to it. Talk about a not good flowing decrease here. There. Okay, then you're going to go behind that peg, and you're going to knit both those 2 together. So you're going to knit both those together. toss over, toss over. Then you're going to knit, 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 knit. Then you're going to take this stitch, you're going to knit those two, you're going to move it back one, and toss that bottom loop over like that. Okay. Then you're going to purl like normal on these in the purl section. Okay. And then what you're going to do is you're going to pick that one up, you're going to decrease it over. There we go. This is a repeat section here, so you're going to knit those two together. Remember, that's what we did at the first. Okay, then you're going to knit your way over. Into that last one, you're going to move it over one because that's your last knit. Then you're going to toss that bottom loop over. Okay. Then you're going to purl all your purls. You're going to repeat this all the way around, and then we're going to do another decrease. So pause the video and complete this round, and then I'll show you the next round. Okay, we're now back around, and what we're going to do is we're going to knit the first three. Okay, and then we're going to take this stitch off and hold it. Take this stitch off, put it underneath, snug it up, and put this one on the top. And toss that bottom loop over. Then what you're going to do is you're going to knit these two, pick this one up, hold it, move this one over, I can get it to move over there. And then put this stitch back on, and then toss the bottom loop over and knit the next one. Okay, then go ahead and purl, and I'll show you this again because you're going to be doing this all the way around. So once you finish your purled section, okay, here's our repeat section. I'm going to show you this one more time because it's complicated. You're going to knit the first three, 1, 2, 3. You're going to take that one off, that third one you knitted off. You're going to lift up that next one, put the one on that third one onto the first and the second peg, and then put the stitch back on. Okay. And then what you're going to do is you're going to toss that bottom loop over. Then you're going to knit 2, skipping that one you just decreased. Again, you're going to lift this one up. You're going to move that first one over, put that last stitch back on the top, and toss the bottom loop over, and then knit. And what you've just done is you've done a decrease where that center piece is moving its way out from the center. Okay, you're going to skip those two, and you're going to be purling to your next section. You're going to repeat this all the way around, and then the next 2 rows will be a repeat, and then I'll show you a trick with your cables if you don't like how loose they're looking in the very middle. I'll show you a trick with your cables. So go ahead and pause the video and complete this row, and then I'll show you what the next 2 rows are supposed to look like, and then we'll do our bind off. Okay, we're to our last 2 rows, and what you're going to do is you're going to knit those first 2. You're going to skip those next 2 pegs, knit the next 2, skip the next 2, and then purl your way over. Keep your stitch markers in there, okay, because they let you know where the purl sections are and the E-rip sections are, and that'll be easier to understand what you're doing when you go to take the stitches off. Okay, so that's what you want to do for the next 2 rounds. You want to knit the ones that are in between here and your 8, and then you want to purl. You're going to do that for 2 rounds, and then we will go in and bind off, and I will show you a little trick before we bind off, how to go in. And you may not like these little holes that are showing up. We can fix that. So pause the video and complete those last 2 rounds, and then I'll go in and show you that trick, and then we'll go ahead and do our bind off. Okay, we finished our last 2 rounds, and I want to explain something real quick. If you're wondering how I came up with what I came up with on my decreasing, is what I was after was having every other peg empty. Okay, and how I manage that is if you move that one over and you move that one over, you do have every other peg empty. So you want half the number of stitches that you originally had. Okay, and that's how I got what I got. Now, if you don't like the gap that shows up here in your purls, you'll need a crochet hook. Okay, and what you want to do is I go up, there's my first stitch, I go up to the, I skip 2 of those, and I go up here and I send the hook behind 2. Okay, then I grab that last one and pull through the bottom. Okay, alright, then I'm going to go up through that next one, keep up to where your middle is, and go through and grab that middle. Okay, and then go through and grab that middle, and you want to keep up with where your middle is, okay, because the more you snug up, you might find it's a little difficult to find. Okay, and I will show you an image of a before and after on this technique, and it really makes a big difference on snugging things up and making it look a lot cleaner and neater, and it'll only tighten up your hat a little bit to do this. Okay, but you keep going up in the middle, and then as you see, you don't have that hole anymore. It's really nice and clean and neat compared to here. And then when you get to the top, what you can do is you can attach it to one of these pegs, so that when you go in to do your drawstring, you can include it in there, and that way it's worked into the hat and you don't have to worry about it coming undone. I'm going to do this with all mine before I do the actual, show you the drawstring bind off method, and so I'm going to do that, but otherwise you can skip this part and do the drawstring bind off the way I show here next. So go ahead and pause the video if you want to do this, and if not, I'll show you how to do the drawstring. Okay, I've finished tightening up my sections. As you can see, it looks a lot neater, and I'm ready to start doing my drawstring bind off. Now, here is the trick. You want to take off your pearls first, because they're going to be laid underneath the top layer, okay, because you're going to do 2 rounds of bind off. And the first round needs to be pearls. Okay, so I'm going to skip my 8, which, because I kept my stitch markers, I know where to start, and I'm going to do a purled direction where I take it up underneath and pull my yarn through. and take it off. So we're taking off all the purled ones first, all the way around. So this is your first drawstring section. You're going to do 2, so that these are sitting up under your knitted sections, so it should make it pop. Alright, so we're to our knitted section now, and we're going to skip over it. You should know if you kept your stitch markers there. And we're going to take off our purl stitches. And what this does is it has half the stitches sitting under a layer and the other half sitting on top, so it gives a smoother crown area. Particularly with this fine gauge, it really does a dramatic effect to be able to do that. There's my knit section, so we're going to skip right by it. Okay, and this really isn't difficult. It's continuing kind of the stitch patterning so that it ends up looking more like a flower at the top, which has been my goal lately, is to do these kinds of crowns. And I have one more section, and then I will show you the top section of this, and skip the last section of knits, which you should know by your stitch markers, and pull through. Now you'll notice that I haven't done what I call the twisted ivy kind of thing going on, and there's a reason for that, because that's a completely separate area of the hat. So once we finish this, we'll need to do 2 I-cords, okay, depending on how many sections of ivy you want. I may do 4. Okay, now we're all the way around to where we started, and it should kind of look like this. And now what we want to do is we want to take off all our knit stitches. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're actually going to knit those over like this. Alright, and pull through and knit and pull through. So you're just going to take off all your knit stitches. Okay, all the way around, and this will sit on top. And what you'll find is when you do it like this, the stitches will stretch, so naturally the stitches at the top of the hat will look a little looser than they are at the base of the hat, but it gives you a smoother crown, and that to me is what's important, so that you don't have that bulkiness to the top. Okay, so we've about got 2 more sections to do, and then we'll be done with our loom. Alright, and then we got 1 more after this one. Pull through. And basically you've taken off kind of half the stitches and then the other half of what you had left to do this, and so that also keeps it smoother. So instead of it being 72 pegs or something, then it's, you know, half of that, and then when you draw a string, it's half of that on each layer. So kind of gives you an idea on how that works and everything. Okay, we have one last section to do. Okay, and then we'll have completed our drawstring, getting our stitches off the loom. Okay, and The reason we knitted those last ones is that it would practically make it more even with the E-wrap stitches, because E-wrap stitches are a lot looser than a flat knit. And so once the flat knits at the end stretch out, it should look very similar to your E-wrap. Okay, the sections that are going to show up kind of obvious are your purl sections. That's okay, your purl sections are actually going to end up getting hidden. Alright, so we just pulled through here, which was your last section, so you know that this here, you find your purled area and you pull it. You want to pull that first. Okay, then what you want to do is try pulling the for some reason that's giving me trouble. Okay, and you just kind of want to work it in slowly, these areas. Okay, alright, and then what you want to do is you want to go in and you want to stretch your stitches up. Okay, alright, and as you can see, there is what you have, and you can see that it sits nice and smooth at the top of the hat. Your purls look a little different, but with the ivy stitching that we're going to do, you're not really going to end up seeing that so much. But what you want to do is you want to send this in, through and tie it off. Okay, and then your hat part is basically made. Now the next section is important. You need to prep I-cords. Alright, you're going to do a weaving between here, and I think I want to do a weave between each purl section. You could choose to do it between only 2 purl sections. If you do, then you want to make 2 I-cords. If not, you want to make 4 I-cords, or however many sections you want to fill in with the weaving section to make the twisted ivy. Okay, I'm going to be adding fur to this to really top it off and make it pop, but the twisted ivy part is going to be the place of interest. And if you're doing the 4-stitch rather than the 8-stitch crossing areas that you have here, you'll want to do a chain. Like I usually take my crochet hook and do a chain, and most people can do a basic chain, and I do a chain. But to decide how long of a I-cord you will need, you'll need a measuring tape. Okay, and you'll need to measure from the top of the hat to the bottom, which is 7 inches. And you want to double that for each side, because you're going to fold it in half, which is 14, and then I would do that again. So you'll want to make sections of 28 inches. Okay, because what you want to keep in mind is if it's 7, then you'll want to times it by 4. Alright, so you want to times it by 4, because what you're doing is you're going to be folding it in half for 1, and it's going to double it. And what you need to do is you need to weave it and cross it in and out, and you want the hat to still be able to have the stretch to it. So you need that length, and it's okay if you have a little extra. We're going to tack it up under the hat. Okay, so go ahead and I'll show you how to get this started. I wouldn't suggest this if you're a beginner on doing this, but there's some who have, and I'll show you how to do an I-cord. You can do a chain stitch for your 4 marks, but I think this one you want to do 2. And so you wrap cast on, you do this, and then you come back and you knit over, and you come back and you knit over, and then you just keep doing this until you have the 28 inches you need, and it can stretch out to 28 inches. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and get either 4 or 2, because I'm doing all 4 sections. I'm gonna do 4 sections of I-cord, and then I'll show you how to do the weave. So pause the video, get your I-cords ready, and depending on how long your hat is, times it by 4, and that's the number of inches you'll need to make your ivy strands out of. And then when you have however many strands you need, which is however many sections you want to fill in with ivy, then pause the video, get that much done, and then come back and I'll show you how to weave it in to the hat so that you have that really eye-popping kind of woven section that looks like twisted ivy along with your nice cabling. So go ahead and pause the video and get that much done, and then I will show you how to do the weave-in. Okay, I've done one side, and I decided I probably wouldn't do every side. Sometimes I change my mind like that. But I've already done one side, and I have my cord to do the other side, and I will show you how to add the cord. As you can see, it's being woven through the cross sections, and the reason being is that's actually where a hole exists, and it's easier to weave in there. So I'm going to go to the opposite side, and you will need a crochet hook for this, because you're going to need to feed it through the top of the hat. And because these are more open, it should be fairly easy to do so. So what you want to do is you want to get it as high up to the top of the hat as possible. Okay, and I usually try to go as high up as possible. Okay, and I'm going to be bringing it through the purled area as high up as possible. I could probably go even higher. There we go. Okay, I'm going to pull that through. Okay, and then I'm going to stick it through the other side as high up as possible. As you can see, it's getting it as close to the top as possible. Okay, and then you want to grab that end again and pull through. Okay, now let me pull my end back through so it doesn't show. There we go. Alright, now what you want to do is you want to try and make it as even as possible at the end when you pull it. Okay, and that does it. Alright, now here is where our weaving starts. I'm going to flatten it out. Okay, choose a side to go under and over every time. I usually do the right side. Okay, and what I do is I send it under and cross the left side over. See? Then I send it over the top of that one. Okay, and that's my first cross. Now the next thing you want to do is send this up through here. Okay, and you're going to send it from bottom to top. Alright, so I'm going to grab that and send it up. And I'm going to go through here, grab that, and send it up. Okay. Now, you want to do the same exact thing, bottom, top, and you want to continue it with the same crossover. The bottom is going to cross over that top one, under and over. Okay. Then you're going to send it up through your cross section right here, because it's a hole. So send it up through there. You're going to do the same thing on this side. You'll probably notice mine's a little different than yours if you didn't just do a crochet based one. I find I do faster than just doing an I-cord on a loom, so, but it'll come out the same. It doesn't matter whether you crochet it or knit it. The knitting might be a little softer than this. Okay, the next one, you're going to take over the bottom, that one over the top on the left side, cross over and under, and then send through. Okay, and then send through. And I really feel like this is the most complicated spot of the whole thing, but it's the thing that makes it really striking. Alright, and you don't want to do it too tight. Keep it kind of loose, alright, because it's going to stretch on the head. Okay, you got one more crossover. See, there it goes under, over. And then you're going to send it up. And the closer you can get it to the base of the hat with all your crisscrossing, the better, so that you have less of a tack down zone. And it'll probably vary between the two. Alright, now I'm going to have it hit just perfect, I think. So. Okay. Alright. And then what we want to do is we're going to want to tack that down right there at the bottom. And what I like to do is send it through the cast on loops to tack it down. Okay. But you want to keep it as fairly loose as possible. Now, I finish mine off with some fur. You don't have to if you don't want to. Now, in order to get it through there, you may be pulling it out some, okay? Alright, now you got your tips in there, alright? Now you're going to flip the hat inside out. And you can see that I went in and I've tacked it down up into the hat. And this is where you will need some needle and thread. And you're just tacking it down. It's not that difficult to tack down. So I have my pieces here, and I'm going to send it up through there. Okay. And I've already done my slip end. Alright. And then I'm going to go in and pull up on the back side. And then when I hit my slip zone, send the needle through it and tighten it. Okay. And then I will secure it. Alright. And this is what it looks like. Okay, and you can see the other side and what it looks like. But this is what it looks like when you do your weave. And that is how you do the vine stitch. Alright, and then at this point you're just gonna sew and tack that down, weave your end in, and if you'd like to add fur to it, you can. I like to add fur to the bottom and a little fur pom-pom. I like using the red heart fur because I just lightly crochet, finger crochet a chain sew it on and that kind of thing. That's how you do the crisscrossing, so that it looks like this. And you do it fairly loose so that when somebody puts the hat on, it stretches. Alright, so that's how you do this, and you're done.